Great to see everybody. Practice 10 today. Had a scrimmage on Saturday. Went about 102 plays. Went really well in terms of how they attacked it. Went through pregame for the first time. What a countdown to kickoff looks like, pregame looks like, and I thought it was actually as smooth as anything could have gone. Had about 300 recruits there. It was really a good day Saturday. Beat up a little bit at certain spots. Would love to get healthy for going into the spring game. I think we'll still be a little bit beat up at certain spots, so we'll see what that looks like next Friday. But excited for practice 10 today. We've got a shells practice today, a little bit of situational football. We'll have an indoor practice tomorrow. All red zone work, and then we'll scrimmage again Friday morning. It'll be a shorter version of the scrimmage, and then give the guys Easter weekend off, and then come back, get ready for Friday night. So with that, I think one thing they asked me to hit on was the stadium, hot topic, as I imagine it would be. So I think it's moving really fast. Bunch of really positive things happening there. Timeline on that. Fast. So we'll leave it at that. Any questions?
Coach, forgive me if you've addressed this before. What can fans expect of the scrimmage? Is it going to be a pure split squad scrimmage? What's the format going to be?
Yeah. So originally my thought was to try to get to a split squad scrimmage. I don't think numbers-wise we'll be able to do that at certain spots, like wide out. I think O-line-wise, I think it would be unhealthy to do that. So as of last week, my thought was to go O-D, do some situational football, do some drives, and then do something fun competition-wise, whether it's one-on-ones or one-on-one pass or something fun that and uniquely different. As I think we'll see next Monday into Tuesday where we are health-wise, and then come up with the best plan. I want to use it as a practice. I also understand it's the first time anybody gets to see what we are. Like I said, I think a lot of it will have to do with health of where our guys are. Like anybody that's like dinged up, I'm being really cautious to put somebody out there knowing that now we're 4 months out from the season, trying to protect our guys too a little bit. So I think behind closed doors, you're working through evaluations. I think when you get out there and there's actually you got to make some decisions on, man, is it smart to, this guy's a little bit banged up or really tight, whatever it may be, like do you really put him out there? And to me the answer would be no. So we'll see where we are. Monday, Tuesday, I think we'll have a better idea. We'll sit down with Brian, put a plan together for what it's going to be, and we don't have to win a spring game. We got to go win in September, so we'll see.
Coach, there's an old adage in football, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Watching you in Tennessee last year, your offense played with extreme tempo. Should we expect to see the same thing here?
Yes.
Back to the details. I would not have thought about going to a pregame for a practice or a scrimmage. Can you give people an idea of what that entails, the pregame?
Yeah, we essentially played it out exactly like it would going into a game. So guys had breakfast and then went into the locker room and worked a countdown clock like you normally would, starting at 80, counting down from how they stretch to then getting taped to putting their equipment on to what the pregame routine looks like for skill guys, for returners, for us as a team, what a 5-minute individual period looks like on a game day, to us throwing a little bit of 7-on-7 team, and then how we would bring it up and go into the locker room. So essentially, we'll get that 3 times this spring, and then we'll get it 3 times in the fall, and then obviously we'll kick it off in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Not so much the practice of it looking right as much as just like anything else you're doing, you want to take any pressure or any anxiety off the kids for when it actually matters. So to me, We'll do it essentially 6 times. That way the kids don't have to think about it. Honestly, in a lot of ways, our coaches don't have to think about it. So as with anything you're trying to do, especially the closer you get to game day, any anxiety or unknowing you want to take out. Anything we can control, let me control, such as travel, pregame, the ease of understanding what's expected. That way, the only unknown is when you start playing ball, and you're just trying to take anything that could add a stressor off so we could play as fast as we can.
Since you've been here, there's been a lot of talk about how's the offense going to look. Will it look like Tennessee? What's your tempo? What's your idea of a quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. What's your idea of a defense? I know Todd's the defensive coordinator, but you have a background in defense as the head coach. What do you want the USF defense to look like, and what are the characteristics that you will love to see when it's humming?
Yeah, I think the thing that's my perspective of what defensive football has changed in a lot of ways since I started calling offense. You know what gives you stress or what gives you problems offensively. Multiplicity is the first thing. A defense that can be multiple. And that doesn't necessarily mean you blitz every play, but can present different pictures. About 3 down, 4 down, 5 up, pressure looks, not pressure looks, show pressure looks, get out of pressure looks, unique pressures. Those things that would stress you out trying to prepare a run game plan, a protection plan, because of the multiplicity of pictures you get. Just like what we do on offense in terms of using tempo to our advantage, you inevitably force defenses to be either stagnant or out of alignment. And so defensively, you want to force offenses to either be stagnant or leave people unblocked. So that's the first thing. The second thing is a third down package where you can get the defense off the field. You got to create negatives, and you got to create sacks, and you got to create turnovers. You got to get the ball back. So a combination of multiplicity, a havoc defense, as it would be called, in terms of creating negatives, specifically on third down situational football, are the two things you're looking for. Obviously, requirement would be to play really hard and obviously be sound. I think that's a given, but multiplicity and creating havoc plays is critically important. Todd's unique because I coached against Todd, and I remember those weeks, and this is specifically when he was at Texas and I was at Iowa State. I remember those weeks of, and this was 3 years of it, of, man, you have no idea what's going to happen on any given play. Generally, you have an idea of how a defense is going to line up. And at the same time, defenses that are so multiple that a lot of times they have no idea where they're supposed to be either, and you can create explosives that way. Like, what was so unique about Todd's defense is that they're so multiple, but they're so sound. And so it was that way when he was at Houston studying those guys. It was that way when he was at Texas. It was that way at USC. He's just continued to grow and evolve. And I think the ability to grow and evolve, like offensively, everybody said, are you going to look like Tennessee? Well, we look different at Tennessee than we did at the previous place, and we look different at Tennessee in year 2 than we did in year 1. Maybe to the naked eye, it's moving fast, and there's splits, and there's explosive plays. But schematically, we were different in a lot of different ways because you fine-tune your offense to your personnel. It's what Todd's been able to do he's been calling defense for 20 years, is fine-tune a defensive scheme based on the personnel that he has. And because of the multiplicity, it allows you to be in different packages all the time. It allows you to play a bunch of guys. It allows you to keep guys fresh. And so that's why that guy was the first call, and that's why through 9 practices of spring, they've given the offense a bunch of havoc because they are so multiple and create issues that way.
What's the balance between finding personnel to do what he wants to do and taking what he does and plugging it into what you got?
I think you're always going to be recruiting to a scheme, I think to a perfect what you would imagine to be a perfect defense. You know, where I think could be really good is that you have the body types you want to recruit around here. And so I think there's a fine line of you're recruiting to what you would consider your system, but you are also having to go play and win games and fit guys that we have. And we have a lot of pieces that I'm really, really excited about that fit what he wants to do. You know, I think really, really good defensive coordinators can put their best 11 out there and figure out how to use those best 11 to the best of their ability. And so far, I think they're still in the process of figuring out who their best 11 are. But I think as it's getting closer and closer to the end here, I think those guys are starting, the players are starting to get comfortable in different packages, which again will allow us to play more than just 11 guys.
Coach, playing in Florida in September and sometimes in October, it's almost impossible to play the same 11 guys on defense. How does it look for the two deep on defense right now?
Yeah, are you saying because it's hot? Is it going to be really hot in September? Really?
Particularly if you get those noon games.
The noon games suck. The better you are, the more night games you get. Is that how it works here? Is that right? Yeah, you got to have a bunch of depth. You know, I don't think any coach is ever going to stand up here and say you're as deep as you want to be. I think we've got to get much, much deeper on the D-line. But I think every coach in the country, maybe with the exception of, I don't know, Kirby Smart would sit here and tell you that, man, we got to get deeper on the D-line. Those guys were pretty deep. So, like, I think you got to get deeper on the D-line. You'd love to get deeper at linebacker. We've got a bunch of DB bodies that have performed at a really, really high level. I feel like we need to get some young guys that'll continue to grow up and continue to progress on the D-line. I feel like linebacker, we're getting there where we can have a little bit of depth, but no, like, talk about havoc defense and third down defense. You'd love to be able to roll guys in there and get fresh bodies in. That's going to be part of this finale of the evaluation of where we are. It's going to be part of getting these freshmen here, and it's going to be obviously attacked in the portal for us to be able to get some more depth at those critical spots, which D-line would be one of them.
Coach, you bring in a guy like Jeff Jones. What has he meant to your development as a coach, as a person, and then also what went into the decision to bring him onto your staff?
Yeah, I think Jeff Jones, to me, in the back of my mind, he was always going to be a guy that when I got the right opportunity and I was ready to take an opportunity like this, he was going to be a guy that I would hope would want to be by my side. He is, I said it last week, he is in a lot of ways like a sounding board for me because he's not involved in the football, which is a lot of the time what you need. You know, like as coaches, you're so entrenched in the ball, and he's got a different, unique perspective on what it is. He spends a lot of time with these guys at every meal. He's over at the academic center, so he's got a really good view of what these guys are, especially as I've been here for 4 months yesterday, and you're being pulled so many different directions that like the relationship piece with the guys is so important. And in a lot of ways, he's got better relationships with some of the guys than a lot of the coaches do. Now, we got to continue to grow those relationships and foster them. But so he has some really good insight into not necessarily, man, this guy told me this or this guy told me that. More so like, hey, Tramel Logan, man, having a rough day. Make sure you spend a little bit of time with him. And I use Tramel because he's sitting in the back. Like, that's what I need. Like, man, saw so-and-so at breakfast, man, something's going on at home, make sure you put your arm around him and love him up and see what's going on. Like, you need that as a coach as you're running around a million different directions. So there's that piece. There's the piece of the peace of mind as the head coach that there is somebody that's constantly around them, around the players, taking care of things that come up. Like, again, I said it when I was talking about the pregame part, like our job, and I see my job is to take stressors off these guys so they can be elite students and elite athletes. Like take the stressors off the guys, like, and I'm talking like from parking pass to academic appointments to real life stuff that happens. These guys got families, and some of them got kids, and some of them decide to get a dog, and so there's like real life stressors for them. How can we take stressors off of them so that they can go perform at an elite clip as a student, as an athlete, as they continue to grow into being men? And so there's a lot of pieces that he handles in that regard, and in a lot of ways, there's times where he'll walk in and just be like, man, like, need some help? And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes he'll tell me some funny story, and we'll just keep it chugging. But there's a peace of mind for me that he has the best interest of each and every single player, regardless of whether they're a starter, or a backup, or a third string guy, a walk-on. Like, all he does is he wants to help young people. There's no ulterior motive. He doesn't get bonused if we win, lose, go to bowl games, not. Like, he doesn't care. He cares about young people. And so I think there's a peace of mind for the players as well with that. And for me, it's a guy that got me into the profession literally by giving me an example of what it is to give more of yourself than taken from the whole, and then hiring me in my first job, and then kind of being by my side through my journey, and always a text after a win, after a loss. It was always like, hey, dude, like, good job, or like, hey, dude, I'm proud of you, or like, hey, you screwed this up. And I've always appreciated that. You need people around you in a support system where guys can be honest with you, and he's one of those guys that I lean on heavy in that regard. And he don't care what we run on offense or defense, if we play fast or sound or not. He actually doesn't care at all. Just wants to make sure our players are taken care of, which is what's most important, is the players.
Coach, you mentioned peace of mind. I guess it helps to some degree. The two young men that followed you up to the podium last week, Mike and RJ, of course, you're very familiar with them. Does it mean when you come here, you assemble new staff, familiar people you may have worked with before? But how does that also help to have a couple of players that you know and have been with you before as well?
Yeah, I think unique. Every situation is going to be a little bit unique. Every situation is different. It certainly helps that there were pre-established relationships with a guy like Mike, who I was involved with the recruiting process. Then I spent a year with him. I mean, a crazy year in that COVID year, but spent a year with him as a young guy. And so there's obviously a relationship. There's less getting to know. There's a comfort level. You know what makes a guy tick, what doesn't, and you know his strengths and weaknesses, which really helps. You got to be a little bit careful because it's been 2 years, so he's grown. Huge difference between 18 years old and 21, and that span of time for college-age young guys. But certainly a level of familiarity. RJ is that same way. Like, RJ is a young guy that has grown up a ton, and a young guy that in a lot of ways needed a change of scenery, in a lot of ways wanted an opportunity to start fresh, in a lot of ways trusted that I would have his best interest at heart, and never promised anybody anything other than an opportunity to go compete and be in a program where you're going to get treated like a young man, and you're going to get treated with respect, you're going to be loved, you're going to be held accountable, and I think RJ wanted all of that, so this is where RJ decided to come. But yeah, absolutely, there's certainly a familiarity with some of these guys, like Gunnar Greenwald. I remember walking into the first time I met with the team, and there's a young man that I recruited at the previous spot. He got this big old smile on his face, and the first thing he says, man, I wanted to play for you, but I didn't want to go to that place down the road. I'm like, cool, man. Well, here we are. Things happen in a crazy way. So, there's some of those guys. A kid like Weston Wolf, who I recruited like crazy and tried to convince not to go to Maryland, and turn around 2 years later, I was right. So I'm usually right. But there's some of those familiar faces. I think the way that this cycle is now with the transfer portal and what modern college football is, like, even relationships and recruiting are so important that and I've always thought you handle it right all the way till the end, whether you get a young man or not. Like, well, holy smokes, like, good thing I ended it the right way with Wes, like it's panned out for us. But yeah, it certainly helps to have familiarity. But the guys that I was not familiar with, like some of my best relationships with these guys as I'm building them are guys that I didn't know anything about, and through interaction have built really cool relationships with. But college football is a small world. Generally, you know somebody's high school coach, and generally you've touched them at some point in recruiting, especially in this state. But it's been a fascinating journey in that regard.
Coach, we in the media throw around the phrase changing the culture. Is there a blueprint for that for you, or do you got to fly by the seat of your pants and just see what happens?
Man, I think if you fly by the seat of your pants in anything you do in this role, you're going to be in a bad spot. You have a plan for what the culture should be. Culture is a really, really overused word, right? Certainly in football, but in business and in every aspect of organization. And so, like, what is culture? You can break it down however many ways you want, but you have to have a plan for what the identity of your program is. I think so much of what happens in college football is people step into roles and then forget what got them there, or forget what their identity is. I'm not a big like slogan, motto, like wristbands. I don't have like pyramids of success. Like I think a lot of that stuff, it works for some people. It certainly worked for some great coaches I've been around. For me, it's been really, really simple. What stuck with me at an early age is be who you say you are. And the way I was raised, the way that I got coached, and the coaches I was with as a young coach, I always thought, man, like, all people want is to be told the truth and be held accountable. And at the end of the day, if you tell people the truth, there's a genuine respect, there's a genuine love, and you could just be honest with people. And that's been my career. That's been what I've always done. It's worked up until this point. So that's what I went in with, is be who you say you are. That is our culture. And I think you can define it a million different ways. You can put it on a poster, you can put it wherever you want, but at the end of the day, we're going to treat kids the right way. We're going to demand a lot of them. We're going to work extremely hard. We're going to outwork everybody in college football, both as a team and as a staff. And we're going to be who we say we are, which is treating guys the right way, loving them, respecting them, but demanding a lot of them, and then holding them accountable at the same time. And these guys will tell you, like, as coaches, they're welcome to hold us accountable, as they should. Man, like, coach, be who you say you are too now. And us as coaches have to be who we say we are. And at some point, the culture of the program will shift when it becomes player-driven. I think anytime you walk into a situation like this where there hasn't been a ton of success, it's going to be coach-driven. The coaches are going to tell the players what to do in every facet of their lives. And the standard of which we have set is that we're going to teach you how to lead. We're going to give you the standard in every part of your life, academically, socially, from a football standpoint. And then when you guys start holding each other accountable, that's when we'll win here. And so that's been presented, talked about, lived. There have been evidence of good and bad in that in my first 4 months. But I really like where our group is. They're not perfect. We're not perfect as a staff, but they're working to be perfect, and that's all you can ask for.
Coach, if you'll let me digress a second, still a football question. You've coached two guys who may be of great interest to the local NFL franchise. What is there to like about Darnell Wright and Nick Hooker?
Man, Darnell Wright, fascinating story of growth and maturity, and man, really, really neat, smart dude. A young man that was really slow to trust when we got there. I think had been through a lot in his life. Like this ending to his story in terms of what this next chapter is going to be fascinating, because he loves football. He loves people. I think if he gets into an organization where somebody genuinely cares about him, I think he could be as good as anybody that's ever played. So athletic, powerful, strong, like smart, like dude, like, man, I take Darnell Wright 100 times over. He's played left tackle, right tackle. He could play inside, high-end intelligent. He's still growing as a player in terms of from a technique standpoint, but he's so athletic that sometimes he made bad technique look good and just unique. But a really special dude, I think, would be awesome to have here in Tampa. Hendo is such a fascinating story, and I said it at my introductory press conference. Hendo should be in New York. Should have been in New York, and Hendo was the best player in college football. And I didn't get to see everybody that was in New York, but there was nobody that did what he did. Statistically, perseverance, willing a team to win, leadership, like putting a team on his back and taking care of the football and creating what he created. There was nobody better in college football last year. Again, I didn't watch everybody, but I watched him. And this is a young man, you talk about modern era of transfer portal, like this is a young man that went to a place, had an up and down career at best, and then goes to a place, new staff, and doesn't win the starting job in camp, and sat there and waited his opportunity, led in the background, and then when he got his opportunity, threw 48 touchdowns and 3 interceptions and rushed for another 4. I don't know, statistically, like ungodly numbers. And everybody said, man, is he a product of the offense? I don't know. Like he was the best player in college football. So I'm sure the offense helped him, but he certainly helped the offense. But so he is a young guy that's persevered through a lot now, coming off of an ACL. And it's so funny to watch. Like, you see mock drafts come up on Twitter or whatever. Like, I haven't watched a lot of TV lately, but you see it on social media, and it's like the same process he went through with us, where he didn't start for us our first game. And he started out, man, like maybe he's a mid-second round guy, late second round, and then like as it's gotten closer to these dudes actually investing real money in people, and as actually somebody sat down and actually watched the film and then like sat down and interviewed him, and now all of a sudden it's like, man, could he be a top 10 pick? Like, is he the best quarterback in the draft? Like, man, I would have watched the film before I made the mock draft, but you guys get paid the big bucks. I just sit here, but like, the more people get to know him and the more people spend time with him and the more people actually watch what he has been able to do, again, is there a better quarterback in the draft? I don't know. I haven't watched them all and studied them all. I've studied him, and I think he's a starter in that league every day because he's smart, hardest working guy in the building. His leadership is what it is. More importantly than any of that, he takes care of the football. He doesn't turn the football over. And if you can not turn the football over in our game, you got a chance to win. And so, yeah, that's long-winded, but those are two really, really special dudes. Two guys that went through coaching changes and came out on the other side of it. So there you go.
Coach, just quickly, or brief one, sorry. No, you're fine, yeah. As far as your spring game goes, I know you got a week and a half of work to do, but what do you specifically want to see out of this group, and how are you able to evaluate differently in that spring game as to what you're doing out there?
Yeah, I think I just want to see guys compete and play hard and sound and not do anything crazy. We won't show a ton. Thanks to Brian and his crew, this thing will be on whatever, ESPN Plus, and so I don't want to show anything on that's going to get recorded and watched. So I don't know. I want to see our guys play really hard and be aggressive and be sound. And other than that, I want to see a packed Corbett and a bunch of people having fun. A bunch of recruits will be there. I think it'll be first time I'll get to go face-to-face with some fans, which will be cool. And I think it should just be a fun night of us celebrating the end of spring ball, getting some good work in, but celebrating the end of spring ball, our guys' families getting a chance to be around us, and call it a day. I don't know if I'm fireworks or something. Like, should we do fireworks or like jump arounds? That's above my pay grade. We're going to go through another pregame routine for what it is. We're going to have a short scrimmage, depending on our bodies, and we're going to have fun. And then we'll let Brian and like the marketing people do something cool. I don't know, ice cream truck. We've done that. If there's an Trammell ice cream truck would be cool, right? Food trucks, kids zone. I skipped the last 2 spring game planning meetings, so I'll be there, but I don't know what's going on.
Call the fire marshal, see if we can get fireworks.
We get fireworks. We got a fire marshal, Tampa fire marshal. Schuler, you got anything you wanted to see at the spring game? Schuler's low maintenance. Spend a year in Coffeyville, Kansas, you become low maintenance.
Talk to him about his time at camp.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.